Hello and welcome to a very special evening of magic. For most of us who grew up in Philadelphia, it seems like Bob Little was always in our lives. I was 14 when I first saw him perform on the stage of the Academy of Music. Back then he was billed as Philadelphia's fastest man with a deck of cards. I don't know how true that was, but he certainly was the most entertaining and the funniest. Over the years I've been fortunate enough to see Bob perform and lecture at so many magic conventions. He's one of the most recognized figures in magic today. In fact, no matter where I go, either in this country or in Europe, Asia, Australia, as soon as they find out I'm from Philly, they ask, "Do you know Bob Little?" I often admit that I do. Most of us are not familiar with Bob's early days and his start in magic. Contrary to popular belief, he did not arrive from another planet. Bob grew up in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. As a boy, he was most interested in model railroads. One of his neighbors was a boy his age who was also into model railroads along with his father. The father was Paul Rosini. Rosini used to entertain Bob with magic when he would visit, and Bob became very interested in magic. Rosini actually showed Bob how to do a few things, which he would practice and show to Rosini when he returned from being out on the road. Rosini instilled in Bob a lifelong interest in card magic. Some would say a love affair with cards. Later, Bob would add to his body of knowledge with tutelage from magicians such as Walter Cummings, Lou Bren, and Frank Thompson. Bob began giving shows in junior and senior high school. He went on to college at Penn State University, where he was one of the most popular men on campus. His date book was always full of performing engagements at frat parties, sorority houses, and private functions. Bob says that he was so busy performing that he almost flunked out. It was here that he began to develop his comedic style and persona that has made him so recognizable. It was also at Penn State that he got his nickname, The Whiz. He actually did graduate with a degree in chemical engineering. He took a job with Union Carbide in Pittsburgh. He was there for a few years, but moved on, eventually taking a position in Allentown, Pennsylvania. In 1961, he met his wife, Barbara, and they married. Since she had a job teaching high school in Hatboro, Pennsylvania, Bob decided it was time to let her make an honest living while he pursued a lifelong dream of going full-time in magic. He opened Guaranteed Magic and made Hatboro the magic manufacturing capital of the USA. Okay, of Pennsylvania. Bob would display at conventions wherever he could and performed all types of shows. His unique style and personality grew, and he got busier and busier with engagements at top conventions all over the world. He soon started his twice-annual Super Sunday conventions, bringing in some of Magic's top names, as well as introducing new talent, like Rocco, Jeff McBride, and Penn and Teller. Well, that's enough history. It's time to introduce you to the wild man himself. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. The whiz the best there is, Bob Little.
Now that I've got your attention, let us begin. This is a thumb tip. It comes in various sizes, colors, and textures, and is the epitome of deceit amongst magicians the world over. During the days of the Roman Empire, when Augustus and Julius Caesar ruled the capitalistic world of Rome, the center of all civilization, if Caesar was pleased with the fight in the Colosseum, thumbs up and he would be spared. Thumbs down and he would be slaughtered in the pit of the arena and cast off to the leper colony where he would lose various portions of his toes and fingers. We're going to vanish this thumb tip in a most unusual, macabre manner. This is the last time you'll see this thumb tip alive. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, any questions? Well, let's take a trip on the wild side. So tell me, what is the wild side? Give me a date in history, any date at all. Doesn't matter. 1930s? Okay, I'm covered no matter what you say. 1930s, all right, wow. America was coming out of the Depression. FDR was forming his alphabet government. John L. Lewis was unionizing the coal miners in Pennsylvania. And in Chicago, Al Capone was making crime a business. And also the storm clouds of the new neo-Nazi movement were taking over Europe, and the Chancellor became the president of Germany, as well as the dictator. Expansion was necessary, and he moved into Poland, Czechoslovakia, Norway, Belgium, Sweden, Finland, and France. Meanwhile, life in downtown Berlin was not a cabaret, old chum. But back in the Hollywood days of the Magic Castle, a young artist was packing them into standing room only. His name, Vernon, and the subject, the classics. The famous cups and thumb tips. Now we're going to do the 2-on-1, which is the double penetration. We'll take two of the thumb tips, placing them here. And in so doing, this is called trying to stack them. This is the penetration of going straight 2, 1, 2. Any questions? Well, the hardest part really is to run them back up. That's the most difficult part of all, is to bring them back up. Here it is, live and in color. Wow. As a magician, there's many ways to fool people. I'm going to do a card trick. I'm going to do a card trick. I hate card tricks. Well, don't worry, this one starts out slow and drops off. What I'm going to do is to have a card selected. There's an extra one. What I'll do is I'm going to throw out the deck, and I'll just have you take the deck, look at it, and pick out a card from the deck, and then place the card back and memorize it, and then shuffle the deck and cut it many times. And meanwhile, I'm going to use my deck. Now, I'll just have you select the cards, or anyone at all. It really doesn't matter. Just pick out a card and just look at and memorize the card, all right? You can sit down. You've got the card. You know what it is, color, suit, and value. Okay, we're going to place the card back on top of the deck. Don't lose it. And if you'll just place the card back on top of the deck, that's fine. I'm going to find your card in the most unusual, supernatural manner. And we're going to introduce at this time what I call a cookie monster. This is the cookie monster. Now, during the French Revolution, the greatest swordsman in all of France was Cyrano de Bergerac. Now, Cyrano was constantly attacking the political parties that ran the institution throughout Paris, the Paris Press, the Gazette, and he was warned many, many times to tone his rhetoric down as far as attacking the political parties. And no one could attack him, or no one could beat him on the sword. He was the greatest swordsman in France, and it was said that he could handle 10 men at a time in a dueling. It was very crippling to die by the blade. It would enter into the intestinal tract, sever the spinal column. And it was a very crippling type of disease to die by the blade. And often he would recite poetry as he was going to end the man's life. And it went something like this: henceforth, as I end the refrain, thrust home, and the blade will find its mark. Right. Well, it really is a crummy trick. But I want to say it happened a long time ago in a twilight zone. But tonight, this is the little zone.